Portals: Astrological Guide to Other Dimensions. Written, produced, and directed by Reverend Dr. Dikki Mullen. In this video, Dr. Mullen will discuss the astrological implications of portals, or openings to non-local realms of information. The portals we use are individual methods to access non-local information not available in space-time. In this case, Reverend Dr. Mullen will discuss astrological portals while grounding herself in time-space and riding the flow of consciousness to other avenues of information and wisdom.
I'm Dikki Mullen in downtown Orlando, Florida, astrologer and paranormal investigator, coming to you with a special study of portals. Portals relate to kind of something between the paranormal and astrology, which is a science of time and place. Portals are when we're not where we think we are. They're different dimensions. Think for a minute of the dimension of hearing. It doesn't exist to a deaf person. Now think of the dimension of sight. It doesn't exist to a blind person. Well, how about there being all sorts of other perceptions and dimensions that the rest of us can only get glimpses of or maybe have heard of? Have you ever thought of how alien sightings might really get here? Have you ever thought of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, how it appears and disappears and isn't here? Is there a way that aliens and Sasquatch might be entering our world from other dimensions? Think about space travel. It really isn't practical to live on a spaceship for years and years until getting to Mars and back. What if you could be there in an instant through accessing a portal? If this sounds too crazy, think about science fiction writing. Just a few generations ago, well, even within living memory, the writings of H.G. Wells, Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote Tarzan, but also John Carter on Mars, and Jules Verne all talked about traveling to the bottom of the sea, and then all of a sudden submarines were invented. Thoughts about flying, and then all of a sudden hot air balloons followed by planes were invented. And then there are many different instances of people going from time to time and space to space. A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. The Connecticut Yankee traveled from modern-day America back to King Arthur's court in this story by Mark Twain. And then think more recently about traveling to other dimensions through a rock, and I'm talking about the Outlander series. At a certain time, a certain date, in the Outlander series, which is a very, very popular right now, someone was able to go back from modern-day Great Britain back to the time of King Charles and the Jacobeans in the 1700s. Could that really be done? Is it real? Well, possibly. There are some instances there. The most interesting one is of two Edwardian ladies. On August the 10th of 1901, they claimed that they went through a portal when they were visiting France in the Palace of Versailles to a scene from the era of Marie Antoinette. They claimed to go back to the last peaceful day before the French revolutions. Their names were Charlotte Moberly, who was the daughter of an archbishop in the Church of England, and Eleanor Jourdain, who was the vice principal of St. Hugh's Women's College. I just mentioned that because these were very conservative ladies. And they even wrote a book called The Adventure, where they went back in a portal and described how they went back to October the 5th of 1789 from August the 10th of 1901. And it is one of the very, very convincing instances. Have you ever been out driving and all of a sudden didn't know how you got somewhere to a different place? Most of us have. Or have you ever felt suddenly that a door closed and you went back to your childhood? or to when you had a job as a teenager selling cars. One of my clients said that he talked about a portal that opened when he was looking for a new car, and he flashed back to his first job at working at the Chevrolet garage in the 1950s trying to sell cars. And he said it was perfectly solemn, perfectly real, and he was sure that he was there, and did I think that was possible? Well, I'm glad he came to me, because I do believe in portals. The Chelsea Hotel has many instances of people claiming that they're somewhere different, a different place, a different time, a different era. And there are 2 days each year when many people who are dedicated to portals try to transcend them. One is August 8th, 8/8, the Lion's Gate. It's in the time of Leo. If you've ever heard of that, that's when a time opens when we're supposed to be like the lion and move toward our higher selves. A lot of ancient Egyptian Sphinx symbolism comes in with the 8/8 portal when it opens. And then another one is 11/11. Those of you who are interested in astronumerology will recognize 11 as a master number. This is November 11th of every year. It is the number of mastery and matter and higher consciousness. People have seen mythical creatures, again, such as the Mothman, aliens at different times on these dates and others. Whatever it is, the familiar world changes in a flash, an eye blink, and then you come right back to it, kind of getting an aha moment. While I was traveling last summer, I experienced a place in Michigan called Lake Huron's White Rock. This is a photograph that I took of it, and this is a plaque that describes what was going on there. And this is located on the M25, Michigan Highway 25, in a scenic 2-lane road which traces the shoreline of Lake Huron along Michigan's Thumb region. It's an area rich in history and mystical traditions. About 10 miles south of Harbor Beach and just north of Forester is a beautiful lakefront park with an historic marker. And while I was driving there, I felt really compelled to go over to the historic marker. It commemorates White Rock, which is a sacred Native American site. And it's specific to the indigenous peoples known as the Anishinaabe. Today, tourists often find flowers, coins, fruits, and other tokens left near the marker stone and plaque. There were some there when I was there. And the plaque again tells the legend of White Rock. From the edge of the road, a path winds back from the parking lot through a stretch of forest, and it ends at an overlook on the Great Lake, Lake Huron. I followed this pathway into an otherworldly atmosphere that was building there. It's a place heavy with a sacred silence, and the fragrance of evergreens almost overwhelmed me. Gazing across the water, about a half a mile offshore, I saw a bright white rock visible. The vibes deepened, and I took a picture of this sacred place, and then I moved into the sense of really being there. At present, this is the early 21st century. The white rock, when you get close to it, is about 12 feet across, and 200 or 300 years ago it was very, very much larger. Since then, rising water levels have carved away and covered much of this original limestone boulder. During World War II, the United States military used the rock for target practice. That was really unwise. They dropped bombs on it, and that contributed also to its now diminished size. Yet, the bright white rock is still unmistakable. Walking up to the shore, you see it definitely there. It stands out. It still suggests to those who are sensitive to such energies the presence of the great Manitou, the Great Spirit who is venerated by the indigenous tribe. The Native Americans were grateful for the unusual bounty of the Thumb region of Michigan. Offerings of tobacco, herbs, fish, and game, as well as various sacred items, were left on the White Rock as gifts of appreciation for the riches given to them by the great Manitou. The White Rock has been used as a boundary and navigation markers for centuries. Ceremonies and rituals were conducted on it to honor and draw the favors of the Great Spirit. During the 19th century, settlers built a town along the area and called it White Rock. And there were hotels, a school, a dance hall, church, and a variety of thriving businesses there. In 1600, a group of the townspeople decided that it would be fun to have a square dance out on the White Rock. The remaining Native Americans heard about this and came as a group to warn them not to do it. But the party crowd, of course, paid no attention and ignored the advice. They traveled in canoes even to the event. One man did feel uneasy, and he decided to remain floating in his canoe instead of landing on the rock to drink and square dance. He ended up witnessing the two lightning bolts that came down, and they simultaneously struck the rock, and it's said that they killed every one of the square dancers, and some of the accounts say it just killed a few of the square dancers. In October of 1875, a great fire swept across the region, and the town of White Rock was completely destroyed. Today, there's only a tiny incorporated village near this site. And some relate this to the events of the wrath of the great Manitou and what happened at the White Rock at that time. Well, who can say? The White Rock Park is free to visit. It's a memorable stop for meditation and reflection. But I do feel that I had a glimpse of another dimension there. If there's one thing that I absolutely abide, it's square dance or country western music. I used to say I had my car wired to blow up if anyone set the radio to either of those stations. I have to stop saying that nowadays. But I did feel a sense of the music that was there and an intense aversion to it. And I think that that was why that the Native American spirits allowed me to have that experience. But it's very real, and if you're interested in experiencing a portal, it's an easy place to visit. Also, there's certain times of the month, sunrise and sunset and times of day, full moons and new moons, especially if the full and new moons happen to be an eclipse. Eclipses always coincide with either a full or a new moon, depending on if they're solar or lunar. And then, of course, the sunrises and sunsets, glimpses of other dimensions, that liminal time when we're between day and night. It's easy to feel the sense of a portal, the reality of it then. And so I'm going to suggest that possibly being receptive and open to it in the right state of mind could be there. And be aware that the world, fortunately, contains so much more than we're aware of. The reality of portals seems very real to this investigator, and for everyone, decide for yourselves. But the next time you hear of aliens or cryptozoology, strange creatures like Mothman, Bigfoot, just possibly they know how to enter from one portal to another, because very often they appear and disappear in an eye blink. That's the secret. And this is Dikki Jo wishing you happy travels.
Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen, astrologer, psychic, and parapsychologist. Dr. Mullen provides the following services: astrology, psychic, rune, and tarot card readings, face-to-face and Zoom readings and seances, and webinars and face-to-face presentations. Thank you for watching. Reverend Dr. Dikki Jo Mullen can be contacted at her skymaiden@juno.com email address. She also has a Facebook page, which she invites you to view, and her WordPress site, where she has additional resources.